Hi everyone, thank you so much for joining. I can see lots of people joining, so we're so happy to have you here. So welcome on behalf of the Skoll Centre and at Saïd Business School, and also today we're joined by the Grameen Creative Lab team who are going to be delivering this workshop. So I can see lots of you have been sharing where you're from in the chat, which is amazing. I can't count that fast, but there are so many different countries in there. There is a Mentimeter where you can enter which country you're joining from as well. And you can see the code on the screen, which we'd love to see afterwards, just to see how huge this network is of Map the System. So just to briefly talk about our agenda today. So for the first part of the session, you'll be hearing from our various speakers. So we have a short welcome from our team, the Skoll Centre, and then we will hear some opening remarks from the Grameen Creative Lab team. You just heard a little bit from Hans and his llamas, so you'll be hearing more about them potentially. And then we are very honoured to have a very special guest today for our keynote speech. Is Professor Yunus, who has joined us, and we're so delighted to have you here. It's a real joy for all of us to see you here, and also to get the opportunity to hear you answer some of our questions that some people have entered beforehand. And then the final part of the session will be more of a workshop, and this will be looking at systems thinking and systems mapping, and really kind of starting to introduce the tools that you'll be using as part of Map the System. So I know we have quite a wide audience today, some people that have already registered. We've got educators here, we've got some people that have just come to learn a bit more. So we're delighted to have each and every one of you here. And we hope you get something out of the workshop and the various speakers. And the session will also be recorded if you need to leave at any point. Thanks again for joining us. So just to welcome you from the Skoll Centre. So I'm Alice Luca, the Programme Manager for Map the System. And then today we also have Peter and Mariah here, who are also part of my team, who are just going to say a quick hello, and then Peter's going to talk a little bit more about why Map the System, why this is such an exciting project, and we're so happy that you're excited about it too.
Mariah, will you go first?
Sure, thank you. I'm Mariah Besharov. It's wonderful to be here with all of you. I'm the academic director of the Skoll Centre. I'm also a professor of organizations and impact at Saïd Business School at Oxford. And the academic director role is relatively new for the Skoll Centre. I've been very excited to take it on. I've been digging in with the team over the last few months. And this is one of the real highlights for me, is getting to know in more depth Map the System and be a part of this kickoff. So wonderful to be here. I look forward to hearing, learning, and engaging with you all. Over to you, Peter.
Sure thing. Thanks, Mariah, and thank you, Alice. Faces that'll become familiar to lots of you over the next couple of months. Welcome to Map the System. Most of you here with us today are participating in Map the System, and some are just here to learn, and that's also wonderful. The Skoll Centre convenes Map the System along with 65 university partners around the world, many of whom are represented here today. And we started Map the System back in 2016 to try to address a problem that we were seeing in lots of business schools and other places around the world, where there were these kind of social innovation competitions that were asking students and other emerging change makers to address big, hard problems in ways that were very kind of quick and top-down and solutions oriented. And from our own practical work and academic work, and I think many of you understand, and Professor Yunus is a great living example of this, that real transformational change often comes from, in fact, the ground up and requires a different kind of approach. So in trying to shift the way we think about social entrepreneurship away from the heroic lone entrepreneur to trying to think about leading systemic change, we created Map the System, because we believe systems thinking is a superpower and a real tool for innovation. So this program is both a learning program, a blended learning program, and today's a great example of that, as well as a competition, a global competition where thousands of students from our 65 university partners are forming teams to dig into social and environmental problems that they care about, oftentimes in their own communities, and try to take a deep understanding of the system as a kind of innovation edge to unlock new opportunities for change. And we're very excited that this year, if the pandemic situation allows it, we will be able to welcome finalist teams from around the world back here to Oxford in June of 2022 for a fantastic global final pitch event, networking event, and workshop. So thanks to all of you who have participated, who are joining this year. For students just getting started and forming your groups, we have a lot of information on our Canvas site, and so we'll follow up with all the logistical bits and support for you from there. But I really want us to focus today on this extraordinary opportunity that we have to welcome our friends from the Grameen Creative Lab and Professor Yunus to help kind of frame what we're doing and why we're here today, and how we can approach wicked problems with a systems lens and take some of those first steps in our own Map the System journeys. So thank you, welcome. I look forward to getting to know many of you. And at this time, I believe we can turn it over to our friends at Grameen.
Thanks a lot, Peter, and thanks a lot to my friends. And it's great to be back on the Maps the System. It's now the 5th time that we play around, and you see, mapping the system is also a way to put all your conscience in, and it's a fantastic tool to learn, and you can even do it with joy. So when we start to prepare now the next round, we have to see this is something where we think a little bit. Our system at the moment, as we all experience, is transforming in a brutal systemic transformation. And we don't know yet where this brutal transformation goes into more a toxic system or more a system of caring, and even with a code of joy. So the actual situation about the system is always important to see how to map it, how to observe it, how to map it, and how to bring down. Thanks a lot to the Skoll University making this up and the social entrepreneurship skills, because it is the tool to go ahead. Why I am here and why you are here, it's clear we all want to learn, we all want to be inspired. It's all about the lifelong learning experience from now on for every one of us. Doesn't matter you're in the university, out of the university, there's only one goal, lifelong learning. So my background is I'm born 1966, and I'm born in Bavaria in a smaller village, and in a village, and I grew up with 6 siblings, so it was a total 7. And the village code gives me everything. Village gives me the enjoy, village gives me the challenge, and the village gives me also to be an entrepreneur. From the very, very young childhood, I'm entrepreneur. I'm pure entrepreneur. And what I love to do is how to make the next business done, how to create the next joy, and how to go in the next adventure. When I meet the first time the Grameen family and Professor Yunus, and I understand Grameen means belongs to the village. How nice is it to have a whole business behavior belongs to the village? I love the village, and I think it's a beautiful way how to live together. The system thinking and the system mapping, what you're doing here and what we learn today and maybe for the next months and in all your studies, it is, of course, the place to be is what we call the arena of problems. So if I went to Bangladesh the first time, learned from the Grameen family, from microfinance, Professor Yunus, the whole family, it was always, hey, there's a problem. And Professor Yunus said, let's solve it. Because we can fix every problem, what comes across of us with our creativity. So, and of course, if you want to stick to the problem, what we have to do on the mapping system is always keep on your problem with all the great tools on Iceberg models, on feedback loops, behavior over time. Whatever you get taught here, super tools to stay with your problem, see the world as it is, but do it with a playful spirit and a spirit of curiosity and observing it again and again. Start small, go be precisely. Professor Yunus and the Grameen family around the world follow a present system. And anytime when I was on journey with Professor Yunus traveling around, he analyzed the system very precisely. And what we find out as it is, it's self-centered. It brings us on an enormous challenge. It's not human-centric driven behavior. The system destroys nearly everything. Why becomes the system so toxic? That's the questions what we have. But of course, there is the counter system in where we all can jump in, and this is what we will learn today as well. Counter system, what's even can say, think, dream, create your own system. as you want to have it, as it should be. So coming back on the point, what I want to share with you on my own personal journey on mapping the system is about the question is, why these systems who start so beautiful, even cooperative systems, the football system, the sports system, they all start so beautiful, caring and joy, how they turn into a toxic system, how they could just turn around in something who is the opposite of this, what the original was being. How was the behavior over time, I would say. So, and of course, during all the discussion with different universities and stuff, I come to the conclusion, say, is the fear of loss. The fear of loss between power and meaning, the fear of loss between benefits and privilege, the fear of loss between love and home. This is what we have to take serious. We have to take the problem serious. We have to analyze it. We have to be responsible for these problems. And always believe we can solve any problems as long as we want to do it. So, and of course, we can do it because we have the ability of the responsibility, but we also need a peaceful ability of a conflict ability. And the conflict is my own personal way how I behave. So, if we map the system, and if you do this now for the next months, always think maybe put life in the center of all our activity of the problem. From a human-centric behavior in a life-centric behavior. The life is so beautiful, and we are on the way with our toxic system to destroy the diversity of life on the planet in an enormous, shameful way. And everything what's around us is so beautiful. So put the life in the center of your observation. But now also to see yourself, and that was my message to you. We all need an early personal warning system for greed, for egoism, for Nazism, and for everything what could attack us on a personal level. Put an early warning system in it. And of course, put the early warning system about selfish and selfless. And put also in your own personal mapping system about joy. And then follow the positive attitude in your mind and see how you can create the system what you would like to have. So in this way, I'm very happy now to pass over to Professor Yunus, who talks about social business, the social conscience-driven business, a model who is Professor Yunus working on his whole life, with a big sharing, open source, and wherever and would like to learn it, it's possible to learn. And from the very beginning, when I traveled and started to listen to Professor Yunus, you always say, every one of us can be the change what he likes to be. Every one of us is an entrepreneur, and every one of us can start today to change the system. In this way, Professor Yunus, we are really curious to listen to you. And as always, we try, even in this time, to do it with joy, because we still have a license of joy, even we are in a disaster mode like now, if we want to come out of a disaster. Up to you, Professor Yunus, for the next lesson.
Thank you, Hans. Thank you very much. Thank you, everybody. Delighted to be back again. I hope this is useful. And listening to Hans, I thought I'll be sharing some of the experiences that I have gone through dealing with the system. And this best part of my journey in dealing with the system, I guess, would be the very, very early days of what led to creation of Grameen Bank and all the other things that followed after Grameen Bank. That gives a clearer picture what I felt and how I responded to the situation exactly, and what it meant at that time, and what it means now. Is it different than what it was at the early stage of Grameen Bank and microcredit and all the things that happened since then? It's nearly 45 years now with all the work that we have done. And I have been there with about 50 years now. The total arrival at the university as a teacher coming from the US, that was the beginning. And full of enthusiasm, that's the point, full of enthusiasm. I know what I can do because I have learned about it in the US University. I taught there at the US University. So all there is to know about development economics, how to do the things for improving the life of the people. So you have a kind of ego that you carry with you, that you have all the answers. Then I go to the other extreme where everything was falling apart, and country was at the midst of a famine right there in the country. After the liberation war, after we began our journey with the devastated economy, devastated country, people are trying to just settle down, start their life. That's the time famine took place. And that famine killed lots of people. And there you are in the university teaching young people the economics. And you bring all the elegant theories of economics to the young people and feel excited about it. But your excitement gradually start disappearing. You say something in the classroom, but you see the reality outside the classroom is so different. People are dying. You see them. It's not something in the book. You see them on the street. Dead bodies lying on the street. And for simple reason, they didn't have enough to eat. And that's the only thing. It's not a disease. It's not somebody came and shot them and killed them. It's not like that. Simply, you didn't have enough food to eat. And that shook you up that it could be that bad. You didn't imagine that an economy can collapse like that. So I was blaming myself that I have not enough knowledge to be of help to them. So here I am, extreme form of the problem, but I have no way how I can help them. So I blame that I learned something which is meaningless, worthless. The economics that I spent life in learning didn't have any answer. So I thought I will spend my time totally uselessly. And when time came to use it, it has no benefit, no result. So I was kind of anguish that I have wasted my time. I learned something which is totally useless, made me useless. So I started feeling that I'm totally useless. I have no use for anybody. So after a couple of months of feeling that strong sense of uselessness, gradually I was trying to recover myself. That maybe I should not look back what I learned, which is wrong things that I have learned, which is no use. Why don't you start looking at people? See if I can make myself useful to a single person, not with any knowledge, but just to react to whatever problem they have. And I started going to the village next door to the campus. It's just attached to the campus. It's a real life century-old village. People are living in a very precarious situation. And same kind of problem of famine is lurking every place. So I wanted to see if I can make myself useful even for a single day to make them happen, even for one person. So that was the beginning. And I started seeing things in a completely different way, as they are, not bringing my way of seeing things. Like I'm trying to regaining my own eyesight. I didn't have any eyesight. I'm a blind person with no eyesight, begin that. And then gradually getting some sight. And I reflected it later on. I was saying that this village became my university. I started learning from the 0 point. The process that I was going through put me in a tabula rasa, that I started at 0 point. I'm not bringing any baggage from outside, from my back, from my history. So that gave me a fresh look, a way to see that. And after a while, I reflected that, look, I went to the university and I thought I gained some knowledge, and that gave me the bird's eye view. I can see things as the birds fly. You can see a lot of things, but see them in a very hazy way. But today in a village, I'm learning the bird's eye view. I see, not bird's eye view, but worm's eye view. I see very closely, I see very clearly. I don't see much, but whatever I see is very clear. And this is real. This is something that I can handle, I can see, I can make it touch, I can touch it, I can see, change it, and so on. So that is the courage that came, being close, getting the worm's eye view, and forget about the bird's eye view. That bird's eye view makes confusing, imagine things rather than seeing it, the reality, and so on. So that is something which I learned that as you come close to the reality, then things become simpler. And in looking back, what I learned, I would say that I came to the conclusion The reality is very simple. But we, with our kind of feeling of knowledgeable, being a knowledgeable person, being you have all the knowledge in your hand, your eyes are actually made up. You see things in your own way. You don't see the reality because you bring your old kind of feelings, visions with you, which blurs the seeing the reality. You see things in a complicated way because you learn to do things in a complicated way. You think in a complicated way. But the reality is a simple thing. If you come with a clean eyes, with open eyes, without any baggage packed into your eyes, you see things. You can see the solution right there. I learned that the problem and the solution are stay together. These are not separate things. The one side is the problem, the other side is the solution. It's packed together. It's a question of untying this from each other and see how to make the solutions happen. If you come close to it, it happens. Because why things become complicated in reality, or the way we think in a complicated way? I said the complication comes because it's a composite of lots and lots of simple things, and you want to see them all in one package. Then it looks complicated. If you go back, sort them out, you go to the basics, you see the simple thing. Then it becomes very easy. It is as easy that any human being can touch it, feel it, find the solutions. So this is how I started learning things in my own way, doing things in my own way. And when I started lending money, I was not coming with my preconceived ideas about how banking is done. I started doing how people like to have. And in the process, what I created the banking system, which became the opposite of the existing banking system. In the existing banking system, they go to the rich. I actually went to the poor. And in the existing banking system, they go to the men, I go to women. They go to city, I go to the village. They want collateral. I said, forget about collateral. The collateral is a barrier. You created it for artificial protection for yourself. You don't need that protection, but you felt protected because your knowledge, your ideas were something which you disbelieve in human ability, and you cannot trust people. So I brought conventional banking through a way trust. I brought the trust back into the banking system. It's all based on trust. We lend out billions of dollars without any papers, with any lawyers, and so on and so forth. So this is the reverse of the thing that banking system does. Then it does the thing which banking system cannot do. So if you want to do something which is not being done, think in an opposite way. Then you can do that, because otherwise you make things go in the wrong direction. So you start learning to do things close. Don't try to start with a big project, big thing. Start with a simple thing, one person at a time, and see how it fits. Make sure it fits into the person. Don't try to generalize it right away. You go piece by piece, then you see the general element emerging into the system and so on. That's how Grameen system works, and the reversal of the system, seeing the reality in the reverse way. Today, even after all these years, I have the same lessons coming back again and again. And now we are talking about how the world is going to be going in a suicidal path. All the theoretical things that we created for ourselves, all the theories, all the knowledge that we have created, the system we created, is a wrong thing. And I have been talking about it. I say poverty is not created by the poor people. Poverty is created by the system that we built. So poverty will disappear once we redesign the system to make it happen, to fit the people so that they can take them out of the poverty they are in. And poverty should be put in the museum. There's no reason why there should be poverty in any civilized society, in any human community. There should be something called poverty. So we should end that and put it in the museum so that it never comes, and the future generations can see what is this like. An extension of this, and I will conclude here by saying how this same lesson coming from 50 years back, gradually into it, the same lesson now, I said this whole system that we are going through now is pushing us into the suicidal path. By global warming, by wealth concentration, by artificial intelligence and creation of massive unemployment because of artificial intelligence. This is just a suicidal path. We don't have much time on this planet. So the current civilization that we are going through is a civilization which is going to destroy us. So I keep telling that before the civilization that we are in destroys us, old civilization which we have destroys us, we have to build a new civilization to undo everything that we have done and to build a civilization which will be taking us to a new life and a new planet and a safe planet to be shared by everybody else, and achieving a planet, a society, a whole world, a 3-0 world. And I say 3-0 because a 1 0 is a zero net carbon emission or zero global warming. Second 0 is a zero wealth concentration. And third 0 is zero unemployment. So this is the world we can do. We can create this world with abandoning the present civilization and creating a new civilization. That's our task, to do that. And until we do that, we'll keep on approaching the final line of our existence on this planet. Before it happens, let's change it, create that new civilization. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Yunus, for your, it's always a pleasure to hear your voice and all the amazing emotions. We have some questions. We already received some questions upon registration. And one question that came out is really, how did you not give up, you know, in front of so many challenges and everything you have been through with the Grameen Bank? What made you not give up? Where did you find the energy?
I didn't give up because problem didn't disappear. That's very simple. Because my focus is on the problem. So I don't care what others are saying. Problem exists, so I exist, so that I can solve the problem. So no matter what they say, they're saying from their blurred eyes, their blind eyes. So I thought they are absorbed in the old ideas and the old way of thinking and seeing things in a different way. So I said, I'm not party to that. I'm seeing it in a very clear way. It exists, and in an extreme form. Luckily for me, sorry to say that, it was extreme situation of life and death, hunger, and a very instantaneous situation that you see. It's not something you dig out after a long trial. It's right in front of you, and you cannot walk away from it. So there's no way I can do that. I cannot walk away from that. So irrespective of what others will be saying, it's impossible, it cannot be done. I said, it has to be done. There is no other alternative for that.
Yeah, and there's another question. So how can we change the system to eradicate poverty, where else we don't have the power and influence to change the system?
I will just try to mention that. I said the one way to do, the first concrete way to do that is to change the system which created the poverty. And I was saying that my knowledge, my conclusion was, poverty is not created by the people. So when we talk about poverty, elimination of poverty, ending poverty, we always look to the poor people. Go to them, give them education, give them health, give them this, give them that. I said, that doesn't solve the problem. You're busy with as if somebody, a person is responsible for his or her own poverty. It's not. Is there something imposed from outside? No matter what you do with that, system will come and push it back into poverty, even if you pull them out individually, but the system comes and buries him or her into poverty again. So until you create that new system, which will bring people out of poverty and keep them there, because the system is not contributing to the poverty. So that's the system I was trying to look for, how the system is creating poverty. And one of the first question that I answered in the first question, answering that question was, poverty, major contributor of creating poverty is the banking system. And I was focusing on the banking system, how to bring that finance to them. Then later on, as you continued, I came in a bigger idea. I said, all human beings are looked at as a potential job seeker or potential person to carry on a job and sustain a life. I said, this is absolutely wrong vision. Somebody sitting there in the room thought it out. They have not looked at the real person. Real person is an entrepreneur. Real person survived because of his creativity, because of the ideas that he or she has, and then it's basically entrepreneurship. So why don't we help them to remain an entrepreneur, become successful entrepreneur? Then I hit into the question that where is the money to do that? Finance becomes the real issue. And the entire financial system denies that facility. I said the finance is the oxygen of entrepreneurship. If you cannot bring this oxygen to people, people will always be sitting around and looking for a job because you have not given them the chance to use their entrepreneurship by bringing the oxygen to them. So I'm trying to provide that. Today, still I'm saying the same thing. All young people, wherever they are entrepreneurs. They should be prepared for their entrepreneurship in education system, and the financial system will be waiting with the money. So that as soon as you have an idea, here is the money, and at your terms, not my terms. And we gave them their terms, and we create those kind of things. So this is where the essential thing is all about, the entrepreneurship, how to make them into entrepreneurs. So poverty is created by the system. That we have to accept and redesign the system.
Yeah, and like many of the people here today will join now the Map the System competition. So you showed really how you digged into the problem, starting really looking at people. What suggestions would you have for the students and for the people entering the competition when they have to analyze problems? What suggestion would you have on how to identify a problem and how to identify really the causes and the factors which are important in understanding the system behind that problem?
Yeah, just I would say that as you see a problem like poverty is a global problem, and you want to solve that problem, you want to start saying how many people are poor, at what level of poverty, and all kinds of big things. That doesn't give you any solution. This is just you're defining a problem. What it is. Solution comes from individual. You take one of the poor person and focus on him or her. What is that missing? What will help the person to turn herself out into something else? If you're looking for at an unemployed young person, for example, he's looking for a job or she's looking for a job, there is no job. So this is your problem, unemployment. Why he or she is not getting a job? That will be the next question, because you are looking for one person. Until you find the answer for that one person, you have not found the answer for anybody. Today we said, no, give this money and create job. This investment will create 2,000 jobs. That investment will create 500 jobs. So you need more investment. So that's not an answer. You're still just continuing to keep them as they are, and just to have their food on the table, enough to survive. So if you're looking for food on the table for survive, you're not solving the problem. You're simply taking care of the immediate problem, immediate issue of the survival. So, removing poverty is not about survival of the person in a day-to-day way. It's unleashing the energy of the person. Every person is packed with unlimited creative power. Human beings are the same. Once you take them off from the context of societal context and so on, they're as creative as anybody else. Simply, society never gave them a chance to go in the direction that the people who crossed the border went to the other places, levels of income. They never had the chance. They never, the infrastructure built around them didn't give them a chance. So you build that infrastructure. So look at the unemployed young person, see what he or she is looking for. If you have solved the problem of one person, you have solved the problem of the millions and billions. All you have to do now is to repeat it. There's a repetition solve the massive problem. So you come back to the basic one element, single element that you have to do. And if you find it, repeat it for second one, repeat it for third one, see the varieties of things or the commonness of things. Then you got the picture. All you have to do is to now institutionalize it so that it's not raising a question anymore, because you found the formula, it will improve it. You keep on improving it because your knowledge, your experience will help you to get the more experience to make it more efficient. That's all. So it's not about going into bigger picture. So those who are designing those projects or ideas, just focus on one person.
And we've really seen how that happened with Grameen Bank, one woman after the other, and then impacting millions of lives of women.
Absolutely.
And how really Grameen Bank kind of like really made a counter system, like really created a counter system where poor people could not access credit. We have here a question: how can we change the economic system when some people in power would like the status quo to remain? And I guess you did find that problem also with Grameen Bank. So maybe I'm sure you can give great insights on this one.
Yeah, I was referring to that when I was saying creating a new civilization. This kind of sums it up. Saying this civilization is built on the concept of profit maximization. The essence of the entire civilization is profit maximization. So we are all rushing to make money. Everybody is rushed to make money. Everybody said that is your success. The more money you make, more successful you are. And you are supposed to make it the maximum possible in every day. If you have done so much profit yesterday, you have to make more profit today, and tomorrow you have to make more profit. That's the direction. They said this is the efficiency of the system increases the more you make money and you're efficient, because you have a profit maximizing business running around all over the place. I said that is a path for destruction, because then you don't pay attention to anything. You don't pay attention to poverty. You don't pay attention to global warming. You keep on adding to this problem. You make this planet more warm, the temperature goes up because you don't care. You want to bring more fossil fuel, more plastic, more fashion industry, more anything. You want to make money. You don't care whether people live or people die, whether your children will have a life of themselves or your grandchildren will ever be born on this planet. How long will survive? You have no consideration whatsoever. So you cannot do that kind of focus, profit maximizing. Profit maximizing civilization is a self-destructing civilization. So we are just waiting for our last breath on this planet. It's not very long now. It's maybe 10 years, maybe 20 years, maybe 50 years, maybe 100 years, but it is there. It's in the way. We are rushing towards that. Our train taking us is in a high-speed train going to the death and destruction of this planet. So should we continue in this train, or we build a new train to go in a different way? We can do that. It's up to us to decide. So we build new civilization. If this civilization is based on profit maximization, new civilization must be built on no profit at all, zero personal profit completely. Because you're not interested in profit, you're interested in life of the human being. So your whole civilization has to be built on the life of the civilization, life of the people, to have a life for everybody ensured, and there is no wealth concentration. Some people becoming extra super rich, and others remaining extreme poor people. That kind of system we don't have. So we deny profit maximization. We come to the zero personal profit. So that's the kind of system we will. That's where the beginning of what we now have been creating it, promoting it, called social business. Social business is exactly like that. This is a non-dividend company to solve human problem, because human beings are not just robots to make money. So we have lost the present civilization lost the humanity inside inside of the civilization. There is no humanity. Look at the vaccines. People are dying, but companies want to make money. They will not want to give away their patent right, because their patent right gives them the billions of dollars in profit and so on. So they couldn't care less whether people die or not. Their motto is a profit maximization. Their people will die. It's a very, very easy way to look at it. Death of the people, millions of people dies, and here you have a vaccine which you're holding on to it because you want to make money out of it. So this is the civilization that we have built, and this is a no-go civilization. There is no way we can survive in this civilization. So we have to transform ourselves into a new civilization, the civilization which will look at the humanity, because we are called human being, but without humanity. We became a robot under the present civilization, money-making robots. So we have to create a new civilization where we come as a human being, not as robots.
Thank you. And also when we look at systems in general, it's made of systems are made of organizations, companies, and at the end, it's just about people and these human beings that create this civilization. And I think with this note, thank you so much, Professor Yunus.
Thank you.
With us and launching the Map the System competition with the Skoll Center and Said Business School. We are going to go now into the second part of this session today, going deep into the theory. if you want to stay with us still, Professor Yunus, you're more than
welcome.
No,
I have to go. I'll say good night to you because it's night in Bangladesh.
Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Good night, Professor Yunus.
Thank you. Good night. Bye-bye.
Good night.
Thank you.
Bye.
Thank you. Good to see you all. Thank you.
Good to see you. Sleep healthy and well.
So I now pass the words to Nafis and Tuba from the Grameen Creative Lab. We're gonna deep dive into really what is system thinking. The idea is really just to give you some insights to begin with, but then of course the team at the Skull Center will provide with much more material to dig more into the theory. I'll leave you the word.
Thank you, Mary. Also, big welcome from our side, from Nafisa and me, Tuba. So we are, as Mary said, we continue, and we will be also your facilitators for today's workshop. And next slide. Yeah, so what we are going to do today is we split this workshop in 4 parts. So we had the Get Inspired part, which is always fascinating for us to hear to Professor Mohamed Yunus and also Hans Weitz. Thank you again for this moment. And the second part will be more exploring. So we will give you the opportunity to have a, to have an overview about what is system thinking, and also how do you apply systems thinking. So it's more like to understand first, and then we will jump to the learning part. So here maybe some of you has done the problem, okay, I have a problem, but I do not know how to approach it. So here in this part, we will talk more about how to analyze your problems. And the last part is the connection part. So it will be more an interactive workshop. And we have already seen that you are using the chat function and sharing some LinkedIn profiles. So, so you are actually doing it already to connecting each other. Yeah, so let's start first with the question, what is systems thinking? I pass it to you, Nafisa.
Thank you so much, Tuba. Hello, everyone. It's great to see everyone joining from different corners of the world. I just shared a link and a code. So the Map the Systems competition team and all of us and Professor Yunus, everyone was mentioning the word system so much. What do you think of the word system? What is your first association with the word system? Please put your answers in Mentimeter. We already have some very interesting words. Rigid, that's interesting. So people think systems are rigid and then like hold you to your place. A combination of components, that's a very engineering point of view. People, that's amazing. People, I see a lot of people, complexity, visualization. That's a very interesting word, and you'll get to hear more about it. At the next part of the session, organizing, dynamic. Wow, everyone knows everything.
Yeah,
that's amazing.
critical thinking. And I also like how it maps. Wow.
So do we really need to talk, or do we stop the workshop now? But this is amazing. So what we see here is we see how the system might look like. So based on like how you're viewing the system, we are seeing a lot of connections, the point of connections, and the fact that it's dynamic, connectivity, and we are seeing another word a lot, visualization. But as we can agree, complexity and people, these two do make up a system, and that's something we all are agreeing on. So thank you. You already know the basics, but let's dive deeper.
Thank you very much.
Over to you, Tuba.
Yeah, thank you, Nafisa. So yeah, coming back to the question, like what is system thinking, right? So if you think about it, it is a perspective, a language, and a set of tools. So it is an approach that asks how various elements within a system influence one another, rather than reacting to individual problems that arise. So to make this more visualized and to get a picture, imagine you have a circle. And in this circle, you have a lot of elements, right? And you try to understand how these elements are related to each other. But when you change, it's not about what happened with one element it changed in the circle. It's more about when it changed, what happened with the other elements. So it's more like, imagine of zooming out from the circle and looking at it from meta level. Yeah. So another question, next question is, why do we need systems thinking? So maybe some of you asked us questions, why it is good, why I should use it. So let's open this question with a picture. And I give you a bit time, maybe 5 seconds to just look at that and what you see. Okay, so here, this picture is took from the book from David Peter Stroh. So this was his best-selling book about systems thinking. And we like that picture very much because it you see there are 5 blind men, right? And everyone sees the elephant from their own perspective. So the elephant is here also the picture for being like a complex problem. So one of them is saying, for example, an elephant is like a snake. The other one is saying an elephant is like a tree trunk. The third one is saying it's like a brush. The fourth one is saying an elephant is like a rope. And the last one is saying an elephant is soft and mushy. So all of these are not wrong, right? But what they do is they just see it from one perspective and they miss actually the whole picture about it. So coming back to the questions, why do we need system thinking is we have to understand the problems, we have to manage the complexity, and thus to be able to create effective and sustaining solutions. So here I would like to repeat this again to make it more clear. It's about to understand the problem, to manage the complexity, and to create the effect and to create, right? So it's about understanding, managing, and creating. So first I can act if I understand the problem, and then I can manage on this, and then I can create on that. So who applies system thinking? So so who applies systems thinking? We have, to make it really generalized, we have 2 groups. So one of them are organizations and companies. For example, what Professor Mohammed Yunus said, the Grameen Bank, the Grameen Caledonian College of Nursing, but also Brook, which is using an upcycled business model, and it's more about fashion in Bangladesh. So we also work with them very close. And here, organizations and companies are using it when it comes to change management. So before you want to change something, right, you have to understand what you want to change. So you have to understand what is the problem. And who also can use this, and that is also our goal with Map the System, is individuals. So you, and also for you is like a really nice tool how you can, solve your problems, or how you can understand where to start to solve it. So how to apply systems thinking. So before to start with this question, we just like to quote Joe Hughes. He is an educator, and he actually has a very nice quote. He says, seeking to understand system requires more than just technical know-how and mapping skills. It also requires heart and a connection to our own and others' humanity. So what we want to say by this, saying it in our words, is it's important, of course, to understand the system and also to understand the techniques, right? The mapping techniques. But most important, and that's also what Professor Mohammed Yunus said, is like you have to feel it. So it has to be something which is connected to your heart, and that you can solve that problem. Yes, and from here on, I would like to pass it to Nafisa.
Thank you, Tuba. That was very well explained. So now that we have learned, okay, who applies systems thinking and what is systems thinking, as you heard, everyone, most of the speakers were talking about problems, right? Professor Yunus was talking about why didn't he stop? It was like he found inspiration that the problem didn't actually get stopped, right? So what we will do is like, we'll see from here, from this graph, we can see there are different kinds of problems, and you also have to figure out which problems require a creative way of thinking or a mapping technique, something like a tool like systems thinking. So what we see here is based on the certainty of what we know about the cause of the problem and the effect, and based on how many stakeholders agree on why it is happening. There are 3 different kinds of problems. First are simple problems. So you have one cause and one effect. It's pretty straightforward. So for example, a company shut down and the employees lose their jobs. So you know why it happens, the company shut down, and what happened as a result. So someone became unemployed. And then you have these complicated, difficult problems, which have multiple causes leading to an effect. So an example of this would be pediatric diarrhea in Bangladesh. What happened in the 1970s, 1980s, a lot of children would die from diarrhea, and something that was like easily, that could be addressed easily. But why did it not happen? There were multiple causes behind it. Lack of health infrastructure, lack of education. Mothers didn't know how to help their children when they had diarrhea. So you know what are the problems, you know why is it happening, but you still have to bring all these different stakeholders together. So it's complicated, as we can see. And then there are the interesting problems. And Dr. Dravak already mentioned about wicked problems. So what are wicked problems? Wicked problems are the type of problem where causes and effects are quite similar and they cannot be disentangled from the context. So something like all the problems that Professor Yunus was mentioning, right? So you have inequality in society, you have a lack of adequate banking systems in Bangladesh, where he talked about Grameen Bank. So one interesting thing about these problems are that often once you have mapped the system and once you go to the very root of the problem, you utilize your curiosity, oftentimes you can figure out what works and what doesn't. And once you've like looked deep into the system, you can turn these complex wicked problems into complicated, difficult problems, right? So once you've just figured the different elements out. So let's see, maybe let's hear from you, because you did mention that systems means all about people. Let's hear from you. Please write in the chat box, what problems do you want to map? What are you passionate about? Which problem are you passionate about and want to map? Let's see some answers. Well, that's good. Wealth distribution.
Wealth distribution.
Yes. That's a very teenage pregnancy. Okay. These are all wicked problems. So you already know what are wicked problems, right? Access to education. So for example, something like wealth distribution, right? So you would have to go very deep into it. Why is it happening? Like, is this still a problem? And you ask questions like why. You look at the different stakeholders, and that is why we have to map the system. But at the same time, wealth distribution is quite broad. So you'll have to specify it a bit more. Widespread anxiety and unwillingness in learning. That's actually quite an interesting one and very relevant to COVID, I believe. So you're talking, and it's quite specific, right? So widespread anxiety and unwillingness in learning, you go through the systems mapping technique and you look deeper into the problem. That's great. Everyone is very passionate. So over to the next slide and we do like a quick recap. Thank you, everyone. Thank you so much for telling us what you're passionate about. So just to sum up, which are the problems that you should be looking at? First is stop thinking about solutions. Wicked problems are problems where you don't know what is the cause, which is the effect, and it's very complex. So focus deeply on the problem. And like Professor Yunus was mentioning, stay curious, look inside, like just go deep into the problem. And also another thing, taking inspiration from Professor Yunus, choose a problem you're passionate about. I don't think that would be a problem. I see you all quite passionate about different sort of problems, and that's amazing. So this means that you would be more curious and you would like to dig deeper into the problem, right? If it's something that you're passionate about. And third is choose a problem that is not too broad. I am sure we would all like to solve like extreme poverty, right? It's causing so many people are dying of hunger. But that is quite broad, so just narrow it down, specify it. We saw some quite interesting ones where people are already working on specifying their passion problem. And specify it to a level where it allows you to delve into the detail. And that's it from me. Over to you, Tuba.
Thank you very much, Nafisa. I'm just so fascinated of how motivated these people are. I'm just super, super thankful. And also thank you for you. So yeah, coming back to systems mapping technique, right? So now you have here from Nafisa's part, how, like what kind of problems you should focus or what kind of problems you can choose. Now the question is more like, how can you map these problems? So here we will show you 3 system mapping techniques. So one of them, it's called the Iceberg Model. So as the name and as the visual, as you see it on as the picture, so 20% of it you can see and 80% of it is hidden. So the first 2 layers are observable and the third and the fourth one is often hidden. So here, it's more like you use the iceberg model if you start to find a problem and you want to really dive deeper into that problem. So you go layer by layers to that. So after that, I explained everything. No, going back. So I will explain it through the Grameen Bank case, but now I just want to pass also to the connected circles and to the causal loop diagram so that you understand what this is actually about. So yeah. So here, the connected circles is more like when you have a problem, right? And you try to understand in your problem, what kind of problems are connected to that problem. So for example, when you have stress, so we all know the situation of stress. So we try to think, okay, we have stress. So what happens, all the phases, what happens when I have stress, right? So maybe I get bad mood, I'm not contacting my friends anymore, I don't know. So whatever elements are coming, and then you try to understand, okay, how they are related to each other. So, and by the causal loop diagram, what happens here, the difference between the connected circles and the causal loop is that you it's more like the relation between a causal and the effect. So here it is more, for example, if I have stress, right? I try to find coping strategies which reduce my stress. So here in this case, we are talking more about relationships, where the connected circles is talking more about having an overview and trying to understand what are the connections between the elements. So it's more like, let's say it's connected circles more from zoom out and causal loop is more zooming in. And now what we would like to do is we would like to go for this iceberg model. And with the case, how we open it actually with Professor Mohamed's a case of the Grameen Bank, so that you have a feeling of this kind of mapping technique, how you can use it. So as we know, right, he was saying that he was in his classroom and he was teaching economics, but he saw in the outside world, especially in the rural areas, the poorest of the poorest, that women are poor and they are working very hard and they do not, and he do not understand why does this happen. So the first part was like, what can we see, right? It started with a clear outline of the problem. So then then of course he was seeing it and he noticed these people are working very hard, but they are still earning less money. So why does this actually happen? So he was investigating actually the patterns that are related to that problems. So in this case, it was like, I think it was $1.50 they earned, and for spending so much hours on that, which was, yeah, I think I do not want to say here anything, but which was not nice. And so then he tried to, next slide, please. So, and then he tried to understand, right? So what is actually the system behind this? So why people are working very hard? Why they earn still less money? And he tried to find out that actually like poor people do not have access to the commercial banks, as he was saying, right, in his speech. And he just noticed that these people are, because they are not getting access to the bank systems, they are going to loan sharks. So loan sharks are people who are borrowing money, but you have to pay very high interest back. So that's what happened. So actually all the money they earned, it went back to the loan sharks. And at the end, they had less money. So because of the commercial banks, they are based on collaterals, and these exclude the poor individuals. So here, last, the part is more like, why do we have this system, right? So this is more understanding about what kind of attitudes there are, like beliefs, morals, or expectations or values do people hold about a system. So what we want to say here is as well, if you want to change a system, you have to understand actually the mental models, which is very hard because they are based on assumptions. So they are based on your observations. So he found out that the assumptions are poor people are not creditworthy. Poor people are lazy and therefore deserve being poor. And poor people are poor because of their own fault. So all this you can keep, so all these things, what you have seen is just how he started from a clear outline problem, how he observed it, and he dived deeper step by step and how they affected. And as we hear from his speech, he was saying he was focusing on the banking system, and he wanted to change that banking system. And what he did was so incredible. He just did all the time the opposite what the banking system was, and every time when he saw that is a boundary, he just changed that. And so to reduce this boundary, or to Nafisa, do you want to say something?
Yeah, I think it was pretty Professor Yunus, like one takeaway that I had from Professor Yunus's speech is when he was talking about how what he saw in the field when he went to the villages was very different from what he learned in the classroom, right? So, and I saw one thing that you were all mentioning, that how do we learn more about people? So you'd have to go and talk to them. You'd have to like create, get different data points to understand more about a system. And it is as much a learning process as it is about unlearning process. Like Tuba mentioned, that you have to challenge the assumptions a lot. So unlearn and also relearn by talking to people and looking at different sources of data to gather more information about the system. Just wanted to add that. And that is how you create more value.
Yeah, and coming to so our key messages of this workshop is when you decide for one problem, right, look at the problem from various perspectives. As you have seen the example with the elephant, it's not enough just to look from one perspective. So try to look from different triangles. Then the second part is extend your boundaries and create new links in your analysis of the problem. So this is actually, you can make this happen if you exchange. So use that when you find something out, go out and also exchange with your people and with your friends. And that's the way how you extend your boundaries and also create new links. Then re-challenge. So always your model. So go deeper several times into your problem. And the last part, which is very important and which we just want to give to you, is remember always that everything you know and everything everyone knows is only a model. Get your model out there where it can be viewed. Invite others to challenge your assumptions and add their own. So we believe in interacting and exchanging. Just when you have that, when you are in that moment, when you pick your problems, right, and you work on your problems, you will be on a point probably where you will see not anymore your path. So maybe in that moment you should go out and you should exchange, and you should always ask for their opinions and then see how you can implement that. With this slide, as we see that science fiction is getting somehow reality, so we just say create social fiction to make the impossible possible. And as far as I know, we will have a survey, right? In the chat. Yeah, Nafisa was
already
posted it. So it will take 3 to 4 minutes, and we would be very happy if you could participate.
Great, thank you so much. Do you have anything else to say, guys, or I'm just going to go over a few follow-ups?
You can go to the follow-ups, Alice.
Perfect. Thank you so much.
Maybe, Jim, you want to stop to share?
Great. So just a couple of follow-ups. So thank you so much to everyone that's joined us today and to the Grameen Creative Lab team. That was a really fantastic session. Really enjoyed the hearing from Hans and from Professor Yunus, and that was a really kind of a whistle-stop tour of some of the key concepts that we'll cover in Map the System. And just a few notes to that. So the tools that were shown are some examples of systems mapping, but we aren't prescriptive in the project. So if you have other tools that perhaps an educator at your institution has introduced, you're welcome to use those. You're not limited to those few that we showed in that example. So we do have some follow-up workshops coming up. We've got it's the same session coming up at 2 different time slots. The first one is next Tuesday in a week's time, and then we've got one on the 10th of February as well. So those are available to register on the Canvas site. If you've registered for Map System in the last few days, you should be invited to Canvas this week. And I know they've still got more registrations coming in, but you should receive your Canvas access shortly. And yeah, we're really happy to see so many teams registering. We've had over 100 teams register so far. And in terms of what the team have spoken about today, the workshop obviously has been the focus of today. That will be available on the Canvas site. I know some of you might not be actually taking part in Map the System this year, and we're happy to share the recording with you. So I'll share that with everyone who's attended today. And we can also make the video link available to share further if you need. On the Canvas site, for those registered in Map the System, we have 4 case studies that the Grameen was the first case study that was introduced. So there's 2 videos to accompany that case study and a PDF which summarizes the key learnings, and we have 3 other topics on there, and each of those is going into detail of a different systems mapping tool. So we hope that you'll find those useful, and you can follow those in your own time once you have access to the Canvas site. And yeah, finally, just to say thank you so much for joining us. As always, you can reach out to the Map System team via our inbox. And also the Grameen Creative Lab team have their details there. I'm sure they'd love to stay in touch with any of you. And yes, thank you so much.